Rogan, who signed a $100 million deal with Spotify, is concerned about cancel culture. Let's watch what he has to say.
You can never be woke enough. That's the problem. It keeps going. It keeps going further and further and further down the line. And if you get to the point where you capitulate, where you agree to all these demands, it will eventually get to straight white men are not allowed to talk.
Right.
Because it's your privilege to express yourself when other people of color have been silenced throughout history. It will be, you're not allowed to go outside because so many people were imprisoned for so many years. I mean, I'm not joking.
No, I know.
It really will get there. It's that crazy. You know, we just got to be nice to each other, man. And there's a lot of people that are taking advantage of this weirdness in our culture, and then that becomes their thing. Their thing is calling people out for their privilege, calling people out for their position. You know, it's crazy times.
So, I like marijuana. I love marijuana. I think it's starting to make him a little too paranoid. I'm just keeping it real. Like there are components to quote unquote cancel culture that I do think are toxic. And we've talked about it on this show, and I'll explain in more detail right now. But before I do, let me just note that there's actual awful cancel culture taking place by people in positions of power that never get any attention. So I'll give you a few examples. Like the state of Florida passing literal legislation that allows people to run protesters over if the protesters are allegedly blocking the road, right? So you don't like the protesters, you don't like the fact they're on the road, you can kill them. That's literal that's canceling someone's life because they're inconveniencing you by doing a protest that you may or may not disagree with, but it doesn't matter. Canceling someone's life and literally codifying the justification of that through legislation. Okay, never gets talked about, who cares, not a big deal. Tulsi Gabbard, someone who Joe Rogan loves. Number one woke bae when it comes to forever wars, right? Except for the war that's currently happening with the Israeli government incessantly bombing Palestinians who are living in an open air prison in Gaza. So demonstrators, activists in the United States want to engage in something known as BDS, the boycott divestment movement. The whole point of that is, hey, why don't we boycott Israeli-made products in an effort to protest the Israeli government's actions toward the Palestinians. And Tulsi Gabbard really led the charge in calling for a resolution in Congress to condemn these activists for doing that. And there are actually states that allow for the punishment of employees who support that movement. People have been fired, people have had their contracts ended, right? In schools and things like that. In Texas, that's one example, as a result of supporting that movement. That's also cancel culture, doesn't get much attention. But the only kind of cancel culture that seems to get under the skin of people like Joe Rogan, and now, unfortunately, I hate to say it, Glenn Greenwald, is the rhetoric coming from people who literally have no power. Right? Powerless people who are like, hey, we're noticing that there's a double standard when it comes to speech. We're noticing that there's a double standard when it comes to our lives. Now, the people who go after those individuals who are bringing awareness to legitimate issues, I think need to lay off the weed, stop being paranoid, and please get Tucker Carlson's genitalia out of your mouth. Just keeping it real.
Wow.
That's what I'm saying. Okay, now with that said though, are there toxic components to cancel culture? Yes, I see people weaponizing it for their own personal career goals and aspirations. I see people going out of their way to dig up dirt on individuals from when they were literally teenagers in order to destroy their careers. That kind of stuff, don't agree with. But what I hate about this discourse regarding cancel culture, what I can't stand is that everyone is on an extreme, right? Either you're like, oh, cancel culture is a problem and I'm paranoid, I just signed a $100 million contract with Spotify, but I'm worried about being silenced. That's one extreme. And then the other extreme, the people who don't think that cancel culture is a problem at all, when in reality, yeah, like the editor of Teen Vogue gets fired because when she was a teenager, she tweeted some things that upset people today. I think that's crazy.
Yeah.
So can we just have a legitimate, nuanced conversation about it instead of like immediately jumping to two extremes? That's where I'm coming from.
So look, I don't know about your thesis on his marijuana habit. Marijuana doesn't make me paranoid. It makes me happy.
I'm partly kidding about that, but
yes,
you get what I'm saying.
I know.
Yeah.
No, you're canceled. So let's just note the biggest irony first. He said soon white men might not be allowed to talk. He gets paid $100 million to talk for a living. He might get paid to talk more than anyone else in the country. I'm pretty sure that Joe is a white man. Okay, so can you believe we're gonna be censored? Where's my $100 million to talk? I mean, you gotta note the irony of that. So I agree 100% with Anna in terms of it's a complicated question, the cancel culture, and people have gone to extremes on both ends. But Joe saying that, oh my God, we're all about to be shut down, etc., and being extremist on that, as he's making bank, talking as a very powerful voice in the media as a white man, it's absurd. There was a whole giant national conversation about who he endorsed for president of the United States. I'm pretty sure you're allowed to talk, Joe. So let's bring that way down if you're being honest. Now, Anna's again right about all the examples. I'll add a couple of examples on the things that Joe Rogan never talks about, and a lot of the people, everybody in the right never talks about when it comes to cancel culture. The BDS movement is a perfect example. That is their opinion about the Israeli state and what they're doing in the occupied territories. And the right wing in this country says, yes, we should punish them for their opinion. We should make them shut up. And if they won't shut up and do politically correct speech, we should have them fired. If you believe in cancel culture, there's literally no better example of cancel culture. And to be fair to Glenn Greenwald, he's on the right side on that issue, right? So he's more consistent on, at least on that issue, than the others are. So be curious to see what Joe Rogan thinks about that. But Mr. Tough Guy, I don't know if it might piss off some people that are powerful, and then he might be a little bit more skittish about that, right? So I don't know, we'll see. I'm sure he's talking about it nonstop on his show. I don't know.
But that's the thing, right? I mean, those issues that are actually substantive, that actually do punish people for their political views and beliefs, they don't get as much, not nearly as much attention.
No
not
attention,
even close.
no attention.
The bulk of the attention is on, oh, it's the left. The left is trying to cancel everybody. The left has no power, guys, none. If you're on the left also and you're delusional about that, please accept it. The left has no power. So like the constant like browbeating about like, oh, it's the left is such a problem, the left, look at, they're powerless and they ain't gonna cancel nobody. Because they can't, they literally can't.
Well, but as you pointed out with Alexi McCammon, that was the Teen Vogue editor, sometimes it does happen, but do they talk about it in a disproportionate way? 1,000,000,000%. And why do they talk about it so disproportionately, as if it's like the world's largest issue? Because it might affect them. So because Joe Rogan, when he first went to Spotify, there was a little bit of controversy about something that he said and whether they should air that or not air that and stuff. And so that affected the multimillionaire. So that got under his skin. You getting fired for saying, well, maybe we shouldn't brutally occupy the Palestinians. That one he doesn't care about because it didn't happen to him. Classic right-wing mentality, right? All the right-wingers, oh my God, I wanted to say the N-word. I want to say all these racist, bigoted things. I hate Muslims and I wanted to be able to say it. It's my freedom, 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 right? Well, how about the guy who said, I don't agree with the government of Israel? Put him away. Put him away. I know that son of a bitch. Make sure you take all of his freedoms away. Protesting an oil pipeline, run him over with your car, cancel him. Okay, the hypocrisy is so obvious. But so I'll just mention the last two things. They just canceled Liz Cheney, the Republican Party did. Do I see all the right wingers crying about that? No, they're busy licking Donald Trump's boots and whatever else they're licking, okay? And then they're sitting there going, oh no way, man. We're super tough guys, man. We want freedom. Liz Cheney said something we didn't like, cancel her. That's obvious, okay, that's obvious. And then as they were going into the Capitol building on January 6th, they were chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." Hanging someone is definitely canceling them. Okay, so now finally, on the other extreme, it's true, it does happen. There's no question it happens, right? It happened to Alexi McCann. In some ways, it happened to me. And it's happened to many other people, right? Oh, you said something 19 years ago, and I'm gonna bring it back up. I'm gonna pretend you're the same person. I'm gonna have no remorse, no redemption, no nothing. Judgment, judgment, judgment. And by the way, Jimmy Kimmel did this 28 years ago. And back then, everybody was doing it, and they were wrong to do it back then, but they all thought it was okay. And no, Jimmy Kimmel's the only one. He's a monster. Let's get him fired. That does happen. It does happen, right? So now, if we talked about it in a measured way, and we were not hypocritical about it like we do on this show, and you had enough courage to call out your own side like we do, and call out the other side, and do it in a consistent, principled way, then I say, okay, then let's have a conversation about it. But and talk about it in the proper context of it's the 38th most important issue in the country, right? People's wages, which you don't care about because you're a multimillionaire. People's healthcare you don't care about because you have, I'm sure, the best healthcare there is in the country, right? You don't care about any of those things. That's actually 45,000 people a year die because they don't have health insurance. I'm pretty sure that's a more important issue. That's a stadium full of people. But nobody cares about that because it doesn't affect Joe Rogan. And so it doesn't affect Bill Maher. Bill Maher, another multimillionaire who's like, oh, how's it gonna affect me? Me, right? So just keep it real. Look, it affected me, and I'm still telling you, it's not the #1 issue. It's at most the 38th most important issue. So, but no one else has it bothers to do any of that context or be consistent in any way, shape, or form. Now, but we do want to ask you guys in a poll because we actually, I don't know, I'm curious what you guys think. We've given you many examples of cancel culture that's real, and we've shown you the extreme reaction that the right wing has to what they call cancel culture. And now Joe thinks, like almost all right wingers, if you criticize me, you're trying to cancel me. No, there's a difference, right? There's a difference between getting someone actually fired and saying, I don't like what you're saying. That's called more speech. So we wanted to ask you guys in a poll, has cancel culture gone too far? Now you could think that it has gone too far and still not think it's the most important issue, right? And I'm sure that if we asked you guys, has concerns about cancel culture gone too far, you'd probably answer yes. But that question, I don't know what you're gonna answer. So I'm curious, that's why we ask it. So tyt.com/polls, and we'll have the link down below too. And we'll report back to you guys what you all think about whether it's gone too far. But we're not having reasonable conversations in America. We're having out of control, maniacal conversations that totally twist reality into something it isn't. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.